I recently had a friend tell me that they dislike the long winded way in which I tend to speak as well as write, that I go into exhaustive detail. And initially, when they made this claim, they claimed that I was not dense. What I ended up saying was that every word that I use is deliberate, and seldom do you see me repeat myself. When I do repeat myself, it's to hammer home a point, which that in itself is communicating something separate from the initial point being repeated. I have spent over half a decade honing this craft, not with as much consistency as I'd like, not anywhere near as much, but I do consider it to be a part of my identity. If I heard those same words from that same friend only a year ago, I think I would have been distraught. Because at that time, my entire self-worth was tied to being able to do this, or more specifically, being able to do the written form in this. I know that the vlogs, are what most people on my channel seem to come to it for, but what I'm really proud of and what I really wish people would look at are the written videos, and those who do seem to have mostly positive things to say about them. But what I found interesting about her criticism is that ultimately what it culminated in was her saying that they're actually too dense, which reminded me of something Dotsmite told me. That they enjoy my videos, but they have to pause them multiple times while viewing them because each sentence contains so much meaning. And that's exactly the kind of writing that I soy over. When I look at my bookshelf over there, the times when I was the most viscerally emotional, the most in love with the concept of the world, the most in tune with the intuitive beauty of all things, it was through language. It was through being communicated something in language, or rather having an emotion imparted onto me through language, often through exhaustive detail, that the amount of detail and the observations thereof were literally characteristic of what were ultimately the emotions being expressed, or the personality who was conveying those emotions. In some of my better work, you get a sense for how I observe the world. There's a lot of parentheses about mundane observations. There is a lot of seemingly random things mentioned that, from the perspective of like a traditional narrative, sort of breaks the rules to mention. But I believe the reason why people are able to connect with those videos is because I break the rules in a way that adds personality to the narrator or adds personality to the story overall. And of course I know those rules because I've read so many of those books over there. It's like when Quentin Tarantino said, I didn't go to film school, I went to films. I sort of took a similar approach to writing. And I want to continue writing. But in the midst of hearing those things from that person, it made me realize something I've known for a long time, that if I am to share this work with the world, there are always going to be people who dislike something that somebody else likes. The problem that person had was with my style. They couldn't give constructive criticism on how to do that style better because it was the style itself that they disliked. Can I get upset over that? Not really, because what they're asking me to change is who I am. If I were to attempt to write in the style of somebody else, I would either miserably fail or be miserable in doing so, because that's not who I am. My brain, for whatever it's worth, however it works, whatever it is, lends itself to the kind of writing that I tend to do. There are certain stylistic trends you can find throughout everything I write. A dry sense of humor, musings, analysis that the narrator is engaging in, through the skeleton being either a story or a series of stories. Um, it's meant to impart emotion on you. And if you don't value language like that, then you're not going to value those videos. You're going to find exhaustive detail literally exhaustive. And to that person, I can't really say anything other than, we have to agree to disagree. When Bukowski, not to compare myself to someone as amazing of a writer as that, but when Bukowski was writing his books, he was disgusted by Faulkner and a lot of these writers that were cherished in the mainstream, because he felt that they described a lot of unnecessary detail. I would like to think my writing does not start out by going, it was 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning. The southern sun was beating down on the people around you. Their shadow laid bare, flat on the ground for all to see, with the light glistening off the windows of their brick house. I'm not doing that. And when I do try to describe imagery, it's always for a reason. It's never imagery for the sake of itself. It's imagery either to convey a point, or because where the characters in question literally are is relevant. And so every single word has to have juice. If each word doesn't have juice, it's dead. You're gone. You've already fallen asleep. Bukowski fell asleep to a lot of those writers he would complain about that are, beloved in the literary sphere. And I do as well. Now, I like more of those guys than he does. But the point still stands. If those guys were to pick up one of his books and they see the way that he'll have a whole paragraph with 10 different words that are all ending on periods, they're going to look at that and think, okay, sound is being conveyed, action is being conveyed, but it's not being conveyed in detail. This is too visceral. We need something a little more introspective. We need something, I was about to say a little more grounded, but that actually is more grounded. And that's all a matter of their opinion. It's a matter of her opinion to dislike my work. No one is required to like my work. I asked for criticism because I want to improve at what I do, but none of the criticism I was given was on how to improve my style. It was on how to be somebody else, and I wouldn't enjoy writing that way. But it got to a broader point because they were complaining about this in the context of the messages I was sending them. You see, I'm not that different in these videos versus in person. My roommate Karasu, who I mentioned an annoying amount in this Wyoming arc, he finds this readily apparent. I speak with the same kind of eloquent floweriness. I do the same kind of introspective rants. I just come off the same way. And a lot of the things I say about myself are true as well. Sometimes the actual reality of who I am is actually better than the sort of self-deprecating way I may describe myself in certain videos. But it gave me something to reckon with because what that person was essentially saying is, I don't like you. You know, I don't like the way you express yourself. When most of what you do is express yourself, and when we're communicating online, it's not like we are on like a soccer team or something and we have some other activity that binds us together. The activity that binds us together is literally talking. And so, why do you want to be attached to me, to have me in your life? Why do you claim to like me if you dislike such a fundamental aspect of me? That's what drives me up the wall. That's what I've been trying to wrap my head around. I don't know, man. I don't know. It could be just the complexity of human attachment, keeping around people who aren't really like a net positive for you. I mean, I've had instances where it became apparent to me that I wasn't a net positive in some people's lives, and so I chose to leave because they didn't have the self-esteem or the strength to leave themselves. So I chose to leave as a service to them, out of respect for the good times we had, and also out of respect for myself, because you don't want to watch a friendship slowly fade away, slowly burn out. You want to end it on a decent note at least, or at least on the least bad note that you can. And so I've had to make that difficult choice, and I've kept to that difficult choice in the instances where I've had to make it. Except, interestingly enough, with this person. I've cut this person off before, they've cut me off before, but they keep coming back. And there have been several times when I didn't allow them to come back, but eventually I kept coming back. And all of those times I came back in the past, it was with what was ultimately false knowledge. It was with the knowledge that they liked me, or they liked fundamental aspects of me. And yet the aspect of me that's the most fundamental, they dislike. So if we're communicating, and me going into exhaustive detail, being flowery as I do, is annoying for you, you dislike it, what exactly are you getting out of our interactions? Are you simply maintaining something that was familiar in your life at one point, and you don't want to let go of familiarity? You're afraid of a change happening? I'm not afraid of a change happening. I'm moving to Wisconsin in a few weeks. I lived here for like 2 months, and now I'm about to do that. I've lived so many different iterations, and so many of them have been documented throughout this channel. I've gone through so many people as well. That when I get afraid of abandonment, or when I'm bothered by the prospect of losing people, it's never from the perspective that I want things to stay the same. It's from the perspective that there's more I can still get out of this. As that sounds a little Machiavellian, but I mean that in the sense that all social relations are literally reciprocal. Now, they're not one-to-one reciprocal, oftentimes we're in debt to people because we make certain sacrifices in the moment that take a long time to be repaid. It's not reciprocal in an immediate sense, but social interaction is reciprocal by nature. So what are they getting? I mean, I know what I'm getting out of the friendship because I enjoy their company. I told them plainly, I like you as a person. You. Just for existing. You. And they seem to have agreed. But how can you agree with that when you don't like the most fundamental aspect of someone? Am I just coming at this from the wrong framework? Am I seeing my speaking patterns as more prominent than they actually are. I mean, I feel like, especially when you're friends with someone online, that's kind of the most important thing. Is it that, in spite of the way the messages are delivered, the observations themselves are ultimately valuable? Is it not entirely negative because of that? I have no idea. And I can't exactly ask this because they said they needed time alone, they needed silence. Um, and so I'm respecting that, as a good friend does, in spite of the fact that I was insulted and angrily berated by this person. But, like, I say in spite of, but it's like it didn't even really bother me. Like, I have such a thick skin when it comes to friendships that they could not only call me a terrible writer, they could call me a terrible person. You know, they could tear into me if they wanted to. And I'm not anywhere near as sensitive as I used to be, just because of the world. Like, when you have to be out there working every day, especially, you don't have time to be sensitive to the what are in reality quite small things. Um, I'm held firmly to the ground by the fact that I know what I am. I know that I'm a decent writer. I like my writing. The thing I'm insecure about is just consistency. I wish I was way more consistent with it. And so all of this is a matter of personal preference. Like, it wasn't a gotcha. They weren't going to hurt me with that. They're not even going to hurt me by calling me a bad person. I've been called a bad person my whole life. Like, some of my earliest memories are my parents telling me, you don't create, you only destroy. Which, look at the evidence around you. That's pretty obviously not true. But I proved that to myself with my own actions. If you let people define you, you will behave like the person they define you as, which is why rehabilitation is so important. But that's a separate thing entirely. I don't know. Generally, the point of these videos is to pose a question or to share a story and then to reach some ultimate conclusion. But the conundrum that I'm working with here is that I have no conclusion. I'm in awe. I'm just literally confused at the notion that this person would like me as a person on some kind of fundamental, unconditional level, and yet dislike one of the most fundamental, if not the most fundamental aspect of me, the thing that you're going to be interfacing with the most at the very least. Like, is it a matter of wanting to love someone from a distance? Then it's like, are they even in your life? They're just sort of available to chat up whenever you feel like you're kind of nostalgic or something. Is it a situation like that? I honestly have no idea. I have no idea why people do a lot of things. Like, I've gotten comments on these videos of people saying that they don't understand my preference for movement and that they've stayed in their hometown their whole life. And that to me is insane. It's like, why would you not want to be taking in and experiencing the beauty the world has to offer firsthand? I don't want a digital representation, a digital manifestation of beauty in the world. I want to be able to physically experience it, take it in, become enmeshed in its presence, to be one with its presence. And in that sense, like, I literally feel like a different person whenever I move somewhere, and I like that. I'm not attached to any one particular identity. I certainly have some things that ground me in reality, some ideas about myself that ground me in reality, but very few in comparison to most. Like, I enjoy the feeling of constant change. And so, is the conundrum at play here this person simply being so uncomfortable with the prospect of change that they keep me around? I don't know. Maybe I'm mischaracterizing them, but I'm at a loss for words as to why someone who seemingly dislikes me this much would like me enough to keep me around, and to explicitly say that they like me and want to keep me around for that reason. I don't understand people. I mean, my ex, one of my exes, he had this group of friends literally for years where all they did was treat him like shit. And I'm thinking back, like, if I were in that situation at that same age, I would have told those kids to fuck off. Go get a real friend. You ain't my friend if you're treating me like this. That boundary would be asserted hard and fast. But I guess for some people, the desire not to be alone supersedes any respect for themselves. Not to imply that's what's occurring with this person, even. I have no idea what's occurring with this person. Which is why I feel compelled to talk about it in a vlog. Now these videos are way more about interpersonal subjects than no's or dotes. Like, all of the other Denpa people have, like, technical things that they talk about. I have some technical interests, but I never share them in videos because I feel like I would do a disservice to them. I wouldn't be doing the subject justice, and through misinforming the public, I could potentially put someone in danger. So it feels irresponsible to talk about my more technical interests. So what I end up doing is just giving personal anecdotes, telling stories, sometimes dealing with philosophical questions, but I don't have the abstract brain that some of these guys have. More than the average, sure, but when I'm in Milwaukee, there's probably going to be more shit like this, because more people equals more people problems. More people problems equals more pondering. That's going to be exciting. I'll get on the electric skateboard with the GoPro and film the city in Milwaukee. And I'll do, like, Louis Rossman type commentary on the state of business. I feel like that would be hilarious. That hoe's fucking nuts.